Please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Please welcome Trustee, Program Chair of the 2023 Parliament of the World's Religions, Chair of the Women's Task Force, a Wiccan priestess, attorney and author, Phyllis Curott.
Mike, okay. Better? Okay. I can't see you, but I can hear you. It's important you hear me. Fabulous. It's a joy to welcome you again to our plenary today on community. Each of us belongs to a community at home, in our places of faith and worship, and here together, creating a community that spans the globe. It's a community of the heart, of respect, and of deep gratitude for each other. Because of our differences make us better. They make us wiser. They make us stronger. They make us more compassionate. We speak always of the things that we share, our love, our compassion, our commitment to justice. But it's not until we are confronted by the other that those values are truly called into being. And so today, it's my great joy to welcome you to our plenary on community, a community that spans the globe, a community of the heart, a community that is diverse and united. Thank you all for being here.
Please welcome founder and chairman of Paylocity, Steve Sarowitz.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Steve Sarowitz, and I represent the Bhai faith. I'm here to talk about community from a Bhai perspective. We live in a world where many people are losing hope, with political turmoil, where all of our systems seem to be failing at once. We just had a big tragedy in Hawaii, a lot of environmental tragedies. We have wars and rumors of war and rumblings of war. We have division and strife and turmoil throughout the world. We have a mental health crisis all around the world. And universities here in the States, but it's a worldwide crisis. 8 years ago, when I became a Baha'i, I told people that the world is falling apart, and people looked at me like I was strange. Of course, the world's fine. Nowadays, when I say that, almost nobody argues with me. The question is, what's happening, and is there any hope? We Baha'is have a lot of hope because we see what's going on as a two-part process. In fact, an irrevocably linked process between the disintegration of an old, defective world order and the rising up of a new society. An old world order based on greed, corruption, patriarchy, racism, superstition. An old world order where people are the other and we worry about our own tribe. An old world order that is steeped in materialism, and lacks for spirituality. And this old world order cannot stand. It's political partisanship, and we should have trust and unity. It's religious differences, when we should all acknowledge the same God that made us and created us. In its place, though, coming together, this is a two-part process, and they're coming together. As this old world order, as the acceleration of the disintegration happens, there's an acceleration of the integration, of the rising up. Since 1844, the whole world is experiencing a brand new age. 75% of the inventions in the history of the world have happened since 1844. New ideas like women's rights, shouldn't be new, but it is. The idea of a single human race, the idea of global citizenry, they're all arising. The end of slavery. You can actually trace country by country by country the elimination of slavery. All these ideas are new. And the idea of interfaith. The first Parliament of the World Religions that happened here in Chicago in 1893 was groundbreaking. I don't think there was even a word for interfaith at the time. And it was so new and astounding and controversial that there wasn't another one for 100 years. What we are doing right now is the beginning of what will be worldwide religious reconciliation. The coming together of one. So what is community? Community is not our tribe, or rather it's not our individual tribe, it's our global tribe. And the communities that make up this global tribe are individual pieces of a single body. This is the teaching of the Baha'i faith. This is the teaching of Baha'u'llah, who said this, "O children of men, know ye not why we have created you all from the same dust? That no one should exalt himself over the other. Ponder at all times in your hearts how you were created. Since we have created you all from one same substance, it is incumbent on you to be even as one soul, to walk with the same feet, eat with the same mouth, and dwell in the same land." You see, we all breathe the same air. We were all created by the same God. There isn't a Jewish God, a Christian God, a Muslim God, or a Baha'i God. There's one God who created us all, who loves us all, and has told us through every prophet in every age to get along. We still haven't learned. But we are learning. And as the disintegration process accelerates, as the hopelessness increases, hope also increases. And I want to tell everyone that there's not only hope, but it's in the Baha'i writings that we will have a great and united world. People of all colors, people of all countries coming together as one. And the elimination of the things that have plagued humanity for centuries. Racial prejudice, sexism, nationalism, and yes, the one that we're working on right here, religious prejudice. The idea that because I was born into a Jewish family, I'm lesser or greater than someone who's born into a Hindu family or a Christian family or a Muslim family. How crazy is that? We are one. We are not the same, as you two said. We're one, but we're not the same. But there's unity in this diversity. But spiritually, we are one. It is only the material differences that separate us. So when we go work in community, we have to acknowledge that each community knows what's good for them. When we do philanthropy, as I do with the Wayfarer Foundation, we don't go into a community and tell them what to do. We ask them what they're doing, and we help them do it. But there's also a global understanding that everything each one of us does is as a global citizen. And when we fight things like the climate crisis we're all in, we need to do it together. My shirt says, "So powerful is the light of unity that can illuminate the whole earth." This is from Baha'u'llah again. Baha'u'llah said that he was the promised one of all faiths. and that he had come to unite the world into something called the most great peace. And the most great peace is coming. It's coming for all of us. And when we lean into that most great peace, and there's many different angles to lean into it from, we can understand how to solve our world's problems. We cannot do it separately. We cannot solve a global climate crisis by each doing our own thing. We cannot solve political crises by each doing our own thing. We have to work together, and we cannot eliminate these long-term problems like racism and sexism by each doing our own thing, by dividing into tribes. We cannot do it by blaming the other. There is no other. Rather, everything must be enveloped by love and justice and equity for every human being. And we must recognize the nobility of every human being and the equality of every human being under God. And when we do that, not if, when we do that, we will have peace and prosperity for all of us. Thank you very much.
Please welcome founder of Agape International Spiritual Center and the co-founder and president of the Association for Global New Thought, Michael Beckwith.
God bless you all, and thank you for showing up. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the founder of Agape International Spiritual Center that emanates from the New Thought Ageless Wisdom, which of course embraces all paths to the transcendent awareness of the great power, the great presence, the great love, that we choose to call God, calling forth within us to bring the realm of ever-expanding good, which is another name for heaven on earth, as it is in the heart mind of the infinite. When we consider community, I like to say that spiritual community, authentic spiritual community, grants you immunity from the lower frequencies of life. That when in fact one is in community, and I also like to say that all of the authentic paths that are on this planet, we're all one community in different locations. One community in different locations. Under the aegis of the New Thought Ageless Wisdom, we operate under the law of you do not see what you describe, but you do not describe what you see, but you see what you describe. And so when we think about the global ethic and we think about community, we're living in the vibrational frequency of describing what's possible where human beings are concerned. We're describing the world we want to live in, and as we have a dynamic awareness and an inner feeling tonality of that description, we would not merely describe what we see when we see the egregious acts that are happening on the planet, when we see many of the things that Steve just mentioned, we will begin to see what we are describing. We will see it first within our own minds and hearts, and then we will see it in our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And the world that we want to live in will begin to manifest through and as us. In other words, every religion is to bring us to that transcendent, timeless moment where the eternal breaks into time through us, that we anchor the good on the planet that we are seeking through us, not coming from an external deity, but coming through and as us as individuals who have emerged from the eternal with everything necessary to fulfill our mission on this planet, which is to birth the beloved community, the kind and just global society. With that awareness and that feeling tone, we will walk not merely fighting what we don't want, not speaking truth to power, but speaking truth to pseudo-power, because there's only one power, and that's the power of God. So we will stand within an awareness of this feeling tone carrying us, so that our energy is not against. It was Ernest Holmes that said, it would be wonderful if someone showed up on the planet that was for something and against nothing. That means that we are being pulled by the progressive universe, which is the outpicturing of the heart mind of the infinite. It is progressive. it is always reflecting and revealing more and more and more of the infinite nature. We will be pulled by this universal presence through the universe and through the law. In other words, we'll be on the right side of the law and catapulted into an awareness and an action that will make a mighty difference on this planet. Something wonderful is happening. I dare say, in other words, as Steve was reminding us about the degradation that is taking place, we also know that when there is disintegration, there is integration at a higher level. As the old paradigm is dissolving and the new paradigm is being born, we are the reporters of the new paradigm. When you turn on your news, that is the report of the old paradigm. Those are actors reporting from the lowest common denominator of the human experience. You are the reporters of the new paradigm. The invisible becoming visible. That which can't be seen by eye yet, but will be seen by your energy, your vibration, your conversations coming together. We will be the magnificent butterfly effect that touches the furthest star, but embraces our beautiful planet, so that we'll be walking in the vibration of what's emerging, at the same time hospicing that which is dissolving. You are a midwife of that which is trying to happen. In spiritual community, which grants us immunity from the lower frequencies of life, that buoys us. It embraces us. It sustains us. It is a link to the source of all creation. The beautiful thing about the Parliament of World Religions is that no one is pounding their chest about their religion. They are beginning to speak about the possibility of evolutionary collaborations so that we can see the world we all want to live in. Total appreciation for each other, walking hand in hand, heart in heart, anchoring heaven on earth. This is what we are up to. And what is the universal presence up to? What is the universal presence up to through its universal laws? Producing individuals that can perfectly reflect the cosmos according to our unique pattern. That's what the universe is up to. That's why we love Allah. That's why we love Jesus. That's why we love Muhammad. That's why we love Buddha, because they perfectly reflected the cosmos according to their unique pattern at their particular time in history, according to their particular culture. What about you? What about us? We are to stand with the great awareness that the universe is up to birthing the cosmos through us, so that we're not fighting against something. It's dissolving because the universal presence is progressive. The energy is rising, so it will not be able to be sustainable if it is not in love and compassion. We will be birthing a kind and just global society, and the caveat is we have to personally participate in our own evolution. It's not going to just happen. It's going to happen just according to our consciousness. And so when we think about community, we think about all of us, not just our individual local communities, but we consider every path that is authentic to be our community, regardless of what one calls themselves. Everyone in their spiritual practice is calling themselves forth, is calling the presence forth. The omnipotent, omniscient, omniactive presence forth as the activity of our awareness. Somebody say, yes, I am. Yes, I can. Yes, I am willing. Yes, I am able. It is so. Now, so be it. Amen.
Please welcome the chair of the Board of Trustees for the Parliament of the World's Religions, Nitin Ajmera.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Jinendra. Here we are in the community plenary, and it is so wonderful to see all of you in the community of the Parliament of the World's Religions. We are nothing without you, and we love you for coming here and expressing yourself and being part of what we are. As we go through this process and we continue to our programs where we have amazing things today, including a kind of a Broadway show on the renunciation of Lord Neminath in the Jain philosophy, and he gave up his life and his worldly pleasures for the love of the animals as they were put aside to kill them for his dinner in his wedding. That story is profound for us to show how we need to take care of the world around us. In this community plenary, I request all of you to join us as members, as donors, as volunteers, as a circle of patrons, as a benefactor members, and become part of us so we can count on you to take our message between the convenings back to your hometowns, back to your communities, back to the people on your Facebooks and Instagrams and Twitters, and show them that the world full of love, peace, harmony is possible. There is not only hope, there is reality. We believe in it and we are part of it. So many people have asked me what is between the parliament convenings, or when is the next convening? Friends, we will tell you when the next convenings will come. But between that, join us in our programs. Join us as our members. Join us as our contributors. As any way you can show up for us, we would love to have you. Our booth is outside this room in the exhibits, and we would love to see you there to become part of our members, benefactors, patron donors, and or volunteers. Love you, and Jai Jinendra.
Please welcome spiritual leader and chairman of Guru Nanak Nishkam Suak Jata Bhai Mohinder Singh.
Beloved brothers and sisters, may God's blessings be on you. Accept Sikh greetings. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. It is an honor to share with you my life's experience, insight, and most humble, proven best experience for community-driven solutions to pressing social issues, partnerships between communities, governments, and other stakeholders. Let me begin by saying that I'm blessed to have had a calling at the age of 50 to resign from carrying out 30 years professional civil structural and low-income housing work to devote the rest of my life towards God's calling. I've had a head start because of my two predecessors. I'm third in line of spiritual leaders of my organization. As a Sikh who is a lifelong learner, I'm required to spend time in doing three things: praying, Naam Japna, service, selfless service, and singing God's praises, reciting Kirtan. First and foremost, it is vital to connect up and establish a loving relationship with God Almighty. Thus, the organization I lead spends time in conducting Amrit Sanchars and conducting baptism ceremonies. We have conducted some 2,000 such ceremonies and would have enabled to bring into Sikh fold some million individuals. Thus, we have now a formidable community for doing God's work. We have continued to pray for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the last 40 years. We have two biannual day and night, 11 days continuous prayers for seeking flourishing of all, i.e. Sarbat da Pala. We serve some 25,000 meals a week at our Gurudwara in Birmingham on Soho Road, Handsworth. We had the privilege of serving langar at the parliament's events in Barcelona, Salt City, and now in Chicago. We have used advocacy and peaceful march by some 50,000 Sikhs in UK in 1981 to get Sikhs legally recognized as an ethnical minority for gaining entry into UK schools wearing turbans and other articles of faith. We have collaborated with the Catholic Church re-faith values. We now have, with the support of the UK government, opened Nishkam primary and secondary faith schools. We have 3 Nishkam nurseries as well in Birmingham, Wolverhampton, Leeds, and India. Nishkam schools have Sikh ethos. They are multi-faith and value-led. We believe education begins at conception through influence of mother's values-led thought process. We have involved ourselves to initiate an interfaith collaborative. We have involved ourselves to initiate an interfaith collaboration with Fatser Grand Hermes Foundation, URI, Kaisid, Religions for Peace International, and our Sikh Apex organization, SGPC. Elijah Board of Religious Leaders, supported Parliament of World Religions, European Council of Religious Leaders, Birmingham Faith Leaders, etc. We have involved ourselves in heritage conservation work in Kenya, UK, and India. We have collaborated with guiding institutions, i.e. universities and others, and won accolades from them for peace building and faith propagation. We have supported UN's sustainable goals, etc. The following are our 6 guiding principles. Believe in God. Practice what you preach. Be genuine. Shun hypocrisy. Work from whole to part. Have an overarching view of life. Be visionary. Analyze where have you come from? Where will you ultimately end up? And what is the real purpose of life here? Be humble. Respect all faiths and none. Do good for even the wicked as well. Bure da bhala karo. Whole of humanity is one global family. Sab mein jot jot hai soye, tisde chanan, sab mein chanan hoye. Be a saint soldier. Stand up against injustice. Hate the sin, not the sinner. Seek welfare of the sinner as well. Respect the institution of marriage. Strengthen it. Have unwavering faith in the Gurus and Guru Granth Sahib Ji, our scripture. Accumulate spiritual capital through prayer, service, and singing God's praises. Do not ridicule and backbite. Shun the 5 vices: lust, revenge, greed, virtual attachment, and arrogance, or ego, which stands for edging God out. Adopt and exercise the 5 spiritual virtues and values: compassion, truthfulness, contentment, humility, and abundance of love. We have role-modeled exemplary selfless volunteering to earn our late Majesty's Queen's Award, together with our award from the Institute of Volunteering. We lovingly motivate, inspire, and counsel and capacity build individuals to create infrastructure through the Kar Seva methodology. This could be infrastructure for places of worship, i.e. Gurudwaras, or places of residences, or conference facilities. The same methodology has been used to enlarge and extend a community cooperative, a civic center, and so on. We are engaged in intra and interfaith goodwill collaborations and cooperation to bring about harmony and peace amongst the religions. We have been working on this for 24 years now. We interface with both the central and the local government. Our financing is mostly based on voluntary donations. We have a community cooperative civic center nursery healthcare center at arm's length to the large Gurudwara. We have physically regenerated the inner city area of Birmingham with some 60 million pounds over 47 years. The organization I lead is a faith-based organization. We have assisted in the formulation of 24 spiritual and moral dispositions for religious education within the new context, whereby we should learn from faith as opposed to learning about faith. We have supported postdoctoral research in religion, civil society, and the UN, prepared a peace charter for forgiveness and reconciliation. We are working on a proposed museum of world religions where values and virtues will be distilled from different faiths for inspiring and motivating children and adults to become good human beings. We are working closely with the University of Birmingham to locate the museum within their campus. We are running 5 Nishkam schools and 3 nurseries, teaching Sikh ethos, multi-faith, value-led education. We have supported Religions for Peace building at university level over 11 years, and have also supported 6 lectureships at the same time. A Guru Nanak chair has been set up at the University of Birmingham by the Indian government, which will be funded by them for the next 5 years. After that, it will be for perpetuity. It is our community's collaboration with this funding institution which in a way led to this. Leadership is crucial. Faith leaders need to see one divine light in all. They have to ensure equal freedom and dignity of all, rid themselves of arrogance, respect human fraternity as one family. World's faiths have an important role to nurture good human beings. Nurturing occurs through instilling values and virtues in them, education and good role modeling. Good human beings are inspired and empowered through exercise of compassion, mercy, forgiveness, truthfulness, selflessness, humility, and most of all, abundance of love. Good human beings will be good citizens. However, citizens without values may not be good citizens, may not be good human beings. Our scripture, the eternal Guru Granth Sahib Ji, advises us as humans to have purity of thought, action, and deed. They have to consider responsibilities as a precursor to rights. Religious leaders will foster peaceful and inclusive, just societies if they genuinely practice their religion day in and day out with unwavering commitment. They must, however, just work within the interfaith before venturing into interfaith. No religious leader should promote hate speech and incitement to violence. They would be hypocrites if they do so. No religion allows this. The core essence of religion, peace building within oneself, is peace building within oneself. One has to fight and win, first and foremost, internal battles in the mind between vices and values and virtues. Broadly speaking, within the Sikh Dharma, the 5 vices are lust, revenge, greed, worldly attachment, and arrogance. And the 5 virtues are compassion, truthfulness, contentment, humility, and love. To nullify and neutralize the vices, one is advised to engage in unbroken, sustained prayer and praising of God. Harboring superiority above others, coupled with poisonous arrogance, can lead to belittling, mocking, and ridicule of others, which is no less than a spiritual sin, which robs the believer of his or her spiritual wealth. Respect, peace, and the sanctity of the human life, and these are the essential ingredients of all religious teachings. Your consciousness must challenge arrogance, revenge, intolerance, greed, and selfishness. Added to this is the abuse of religious power. Conflicts occur when we violate someone's dignity, destroying their self-esteem and self-respect. Every human act has its origin in the mind, which has the capacity to be one's best friend or worst enemy. or it can be the sight of the hidden enemy which propels one towards greed, cruelty, selfishness, hate, and even condemnation of others. Or it can be the nucleus of divine power with almost an infinite capacity for goodness, capable of self-analysis, self-regulation, and accountability, a place to handle inner peace, which when collectively leads to peace in mind, the family, community, and society at large. Loving, protecting, and serving God's creation is loving and serving God. Thank you.
Please welcome the Executive Director of the Parliament of the World's Religions, Reverend Stephen Avino.
So how's everyone's week going? That's a good response. Just want to say that this is the community plenary, and I want to speak a little bit about my own community. I'm a Chicagoan from birth, and a lot of the good things that have happened this week have come from this city. Who went to the parade on Sunday? It was pretty amazing. And what I saw in that parade reflects the city that I know. It's not the city that the media portrays, but it's the city that loves diversity and loves its people, and I was honored to be a part of it. I want to thank all the communities who came out for that parade to exemplify the diversity of this city, including the communities who put together our faith rooms and our sacred space tours, which happened yesterday and the day before. Thank you. There are a lot of people to thank, and I will be doing that tomorrow during our closing plenary at 3 p.m. And I also want to remind you that tonight we have our sacred music concert at 7 p.m. You should be here. It's going to be amazing. But right now, I'm here to thank our distinguished Circle of Patrons. The Circle of Patrons is a group of generous supporters and interfaith leaders who wish to help ensure the strength and sustainability of the Parliament's vision of interfaith understanding and partnership, working to bring into a world of peace, justice, and care for the earth. We offer our deepest gratitude and appreciation to these greatly valued patrons for their important support. So these are the members of the Circle of Patrons for the year 2023. Blau Karis, who's our consistent supporter over the years, with a legacy that in his family dates back all the way to 1893. The Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation, founded by Dharma Master Chang Yen. The Charter for Compassion, Circle of Friends for VRG Vision, the Fetzer Institute, the Guru Nanak Nishkam Sewak Jatha, the Muhammad Alexander Webb Circle of Friends, the Rafat and Zoreen Ansari Institute for Global Engagement with Religion, Steve and Jessica Sarowitz, the Wayfarer Foundation, Wei Chin Chengzhao Sagely Teachings of the Heart. We could not do this without you, and thank you. If you or your organization would like to join this honorable circle, please reach out to Emma at powr.org, or I'm running around here, tap me on the shoulder, pull me aside, and we'll talk about it. Now on to another topic, a little more heavy. People are dying in our host country this year because of the complete failure of our political leadership to answer the call to conscience. And it's out of nothing but greed. This isn't a political issue or a left-right issue. It is the issue where money and the unholy worship of guns are being selected as more important than human lives. The scripture of my tradition says, "Those who hate bribes prolong their days." And I call upon our national leaders to turn away the bribes and take action. Because while I've seen firsthand the power of prayer, prayers must be manifested in action. Thoughts and prayers are not enough right now. Today, the Parliament wants to honor the victims of such violence and also those who have departed us, who we miss very dearly. Thank you.
Please welcome Taoist dancers and Taoist priest from Taiwan, Shu-Ming.
三天将乾坤，现身叮当，彼此较有量，看拍写困路车，千万总是电把起，太子好过又都从前。 幼小老年手脚情，安风林间，代替顺手。主君，千万总是电把起，太子好过又都从前。幼小老年手脚情。 安风林间，代替顺手。主君，
Please welcome member of the United Nations General Secretary's High-Level Advisory Board on Multilateralism, Azza Karam.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you, one and all. I have a great privilege of being with you here today. Regardless of what has been said, and it has been beautiful, I think it's absolutely terrible that I had to come in after that gorgeous appearance. So please join me in one more round of applause for those beautiful dances. Thank you. We're talking about defending human rights. We're talking about defending values. We're talking about defending democracy. You've heard incredible words of wisdom over the last few days already. They have been beautiful, they have been powerful. They are all true. What I intend to do is no longer sing and dance, but I want us to think a little bit about accountability. At the end of the day, we all know, as we heard from the many other brilliant speakers, that ultimately whatever happens actually is mandated by the divine. But it is in our hands. We were created to do. We were created to serve. We were created to love. We are created to defend that which is right. But at the end of the day, perhaps, just perhaps, we may be better at pointing fingers, at labeling, at walking away, or at simply being silent. When in fact, this is the time to speak truth to power. This is the time to defend that which is right. And not to do so alone, and not to do so for one sector or one person or one issue or one country or one religion only, but to do so together. I am a believer in the divine, but the divine is waiting for us to do something too. How often have we heard, how can God allow this to happen? Well, gee, how can we allow it to happen? We have heard and suffered and continue to the abuse of fake news. We are writing theses and chapters and putting up associations and networks about fake news. But you know, fake news is possible because many of us stay silent. Fake news makes an impact because many of us won't take action. Because you see, defending democracy, defending human rights, isn't simply about having laws in place. If it were that simple, we would have had democracy and human rights all our lives. Defending what we believe in to be the common good, which we all know what it is. It's no rocket science. We all know what it is. But defending what we believe to be the common good has a price. It takes a toll. We can pray and we must pray together, but we must also realize that it is up to us to perhaps pay a price. That determination is courage. To go that extra mile even when it hurts, and even when we may lose, and even when we lose. That determination is called courage, and that courage is the divine within us, and it is an obligation, not an option. If we don't defend, and sometimes at great cost, then we cannot love. Because love is about paying a cost too. And unless we can defend and be courageous together, nothing will change. And if everything that's happening around us now is not sufficient for that moral call to courage, then honestly, I do not know what it will take. Let's be committed to love, which means that we have to be committed to pay the price. Defense is not easy, but we tell governments to reduce their defense spending on their militaries and their police and all the structures of law enforcement. We tell them what they must reduce the spending, but are we increasing the spending of our moral courage? Are we holding ourselves accountable to that which must happen, which is right here? And you may hate me. You may feel very uncomfortable about what I say. And that is okay. But don't label me, don't marginalize me as you claim to love. And remember, we marginalize one another every second of every day so easily. And sometimes we marginalize those we love most. But it is time to enact the divine commandment to be people of courage, to speak out against injustice, to speak for truth, and to do so when it is the most difficult thing to do. That is defending democracy. Thank you.
Please welcome retired judge of the Supreme Court of India and Parsi Zoroastrian priest, Rohinton Nariman.
Fellow seekers after the truth who have come from all over the globe, good morning. I am going to speak to you about an aspect of human rights which is not usually touched upon, namely about how prisoners continue to retain some of their human rights and as to what should be done to rehabilitate them. Now, the story of human rights is really inextricably bound up with the struggle against human wrongs. We have been governed by monarchies for the last 1,000 years. And barring emperors like Cyrus the Great of Persia, who not only went out of his way to liberate peoples who were enslaved, but also did the affirmative thing of rebuilding their temple or providing funds to rebuild the second temple that was destroyed in Jerusalem. Most monarchs have been absolute rulers, and we as human beings have been subjugated to terrible things. Now, I find that in the last couple of centuries, we have had these colonies of both Asia and Africa, and they've shed their yoke only in the last century. And with their shedding their yoke, human rights have come into focus again in constitutional democracies which now follow the rule of law. It took millions of lives in 2 world wars for the UN ultimately to come out with a declaration of human rights, which was done only in 1948. And 3 of them are important from my point of view today. One of them is how courts, that is number 8, are instrumental in enforcing these rights, because otherwise they are meaningless. The other is number 5, where you do not have cruel and inhuman punishments imposed. And then, most important, the presumption of innocence, number 11, before you are proven guilty. It took our courts and the courts in this country many years before they recognized that prisoners have human rights, even within prison cells. This country stated in 1974 that there is no iron curtain between the Constitution and their rights. We did pretty much the same in India as well, but this was in the 1970s. And it took till 1990 for the UN to come out with an important declaration as to prisoners' rights. Now, this declaration again has 3 extremely important articles, and it's the last article on which I will dwell. The first is that when a prisoner enters a cell, he does not shed human rights. He continues to have every other right, short of the right of movement, for which he is incarcerated. So the right to practice religion, the right not to be discriminated against, the right to life, liberty, property, all remain with the prisoner. Also, the other 2 articles make it clear that once a prisoner is out of jail, it's important that he be rehabilitated. Now, vocational guidance, etc., is good, and that is Article 8. But it's Article 10 that is the focus of today's short talk, which is a general rehabilitation so that he does not continue with criminal activity after he leaves jail. Now, the first important realization is that a prisoner requires a spiritual awakening. If there is no spiritual awakening, then he is going to do exactly what he did earlier and maybe worse after he leaves jail. And I can't think of a better method of spiritual awakening than to follow the lead given by the father of my great nation, India, Mahatma Gandhi. And the lead given by this great leader was the holding of prayer meetings every day. And at those prayer meetings, what was read was from different scriptures, so that a feeling of fraternity came among everybody. And everybody realized that everybody else's faith was as valid as his own. Now imagine if in jail you were first to read from the Old Testament, and let's say from the Psalms of King David, and prisoners were to be told that they will lift up thine eyes unto the hills from whence cometh their help, and that the help cometh from God. Or that the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Very important, because he provides everything. He maketh me to lie down before green pastures, he provided me with before the still waters, etc., etc. Imagine being told about the Sermon on the Mount, and that the meek and not the violent shall inherit the earth. Most important, that you turn the other cheek when violence is meted out to you, which is nothing but the basic principle of the great giant faith, ahimsa, which has been taught to mankind for thousands of years, much before Christ lived. Imagine being told, for example, about the 4 noble truths of the Buddha. It will strike an immediate bell with any prisoner that suffering is something which exists, and in order to get rid of suffering, what one must do is to channel desire, not to curb it or close it completely. And that you do by following the great eightfold path. Imagine being told about the great Sikh faith and our Sikh brethren who have been giving us lunch every day in this parliament. The actual practical demonstration of love for a fellow human being in their 2 great things, langar and karaseva, where whether you happen to be the richest and most powerful or the most poor and small person, all of you will stand to serve humanity. Imagine also that you would be told about the great truths of the Bhagavad Gita from the Hindu religion. Namely, that you are all bound in the coils of action. You cannot get away from action. So what you must do is to renounce the fruits of action. Imagine then being told about the great truths from the Holy Quran, that God is the God of justice, but He is also merciful. He is also compassionate. Imagine being told about the great truths from my religion, the Zoroastrian religion. The simple but profound holy triad: good thoughts, good words, good deeds. And this comes in a verse of the Gathas, which Zarathustra himself sang, stating that he was instructed about this after he actually saw God with his mind's eye. Now this, and let us say the wisdom literature of the Confucians, the Laozians, we've had them also represented in this parliament. Confucius would often say that it is important to abandon your frailties, and very important to realize that if you see right and you do not do it, you lack courage. Lao Tzu, for example, also said that it's important not to be violent in life. It's important to be passive, to accept what nature doles out to you, so that you may live peaceably with other human beings. I have a particular favorite, which is from the sayings of one of our very great chief priests who lived about 1700 years ago, a man called Adarbad Maraspan. And he said things which will ring in prisoners' ears and indeed in everybody's ears. He said, for example, that what is courage unless it is accompanied with wisdom? Very important. Because even a terrorist is a courageous person. But he's not a wise person because he doesn't realize that he can achieve the same means by non-violent ends. So to repeat, courage must always be accompanied by wisdom. Second, intelligence by vision. Now, there's no point being intelligent and using it in a perverted fashion for which you have got into jail. You must have the vision to realize that you will be in jail and that you shouldn't do it for that reason, but also that you should do something good because it's intrinsically important to do something good in itself. Then you also have the beautiful saying that there isn't much point in having a good thought unless it actually transmutes itself into a good deed, because the good thought is only one way. It is something that you think of. But it's the good deed that benefits both of you, both the doer as well as the giver. And finally, how it is extremely important when you are wealthy to be generous. Now, I would only pray that Mahatma Gandhi's vision and Mahatma Gandhi's spirit would enter every single prison wall all over the world, so as to create a spiritual awakening in each prisoner. Because each prisoner is in prison because his spirit has been left untouched. And it is in jail that this great spiritual awakening can take place if we follow the Gandhi method. And if we do so, we will all look forward to a better tomorrow. Thank you all very much.
Please welcome transformative leader and change maker, Aina Ayo-dele.
Good morning. Good morning. Great morning. Will you share a cup of breaths with me? Yeah? Take a nice, deep, gentle inhale for me. And another breath. And one more cycle of that inhale and exhale just because we can. Highest honor to Ayo-dele, the creator of heavens and earth. Ayo-dele, creator, all the names that we call God. I am your daughter, Aina, Ayo-dele, Ajwa, Ifayemi, and I'm here with your children from across the world at this Parliament of World's Religion. Surround us today with your love. We give thanks for the four directions, for the energies of the South, the West, the North, and the East. Thank you, Mother Earth, and the mothers of the water for continuing to sustain us in spite of centuries of dishonor to you. We're grateful to the sea animals and the two-legged animals and the four-legged animals and the crawling beings and the water beings and the earth beings and the sky beings. We're grateful to Father Sky. Thank you. Deep appreciation to humankind and for the many opportunities that we have to evolve and be better and better and better and better in each moment. For all the natural elements of the earth, I say, Adope Popo, Asante Sana, thank you. Ayo-dele, I offer prayers today during this Emancipation Month for people of African descent by pouring libation and thanksgiving. I pour libation for the over 12.5 million Africans who were captured and taken from our land and our practices taken from us. I pour libation for the 2 million who didn't survive the crossing of the Middle Passage. I pour libation for the 10.2 million who were sold into the Americas, and the 333,000, just an estimate, that settled in North America. And so I pour libation. I invite you to call the names of your ancestors so we can invite their presence and their spirit into this room and for the rest of the Parliament. Thank you. And ancestors, if we haven't called your name, it's not because we dishonor you, but your name may not be present on our lips at this time. Know that we honor you. Divine Spirit, rain down in our communities as we take committed actions for freedom and human rights. May our minds and our hearts and our bodies and our emotions remember our natural selves as we have been taught by our ancestors, by traditional practices such as Ifa. May we remember to honor our spirits, honor the ancestors, honor children, honor our elders before all things. May we embrace community as a central place of belonging. May we make choices for ours, not mine. May we call for the ancestral rituals for united success, because we know that rituals guarantee success. May we care for our temporal and spiritual capacities for inner alignment. Bring to our remembering our purpose. For each of us has come to this planet with a specific path, and that path helps us to steward natural elements. So give us the wisdom, give us the strength to take care of this planet as we take care of ourselves. Spirits of our ancestors, help us for consistent and vigilant actions for change. Imbue us today with overflowing joy and happiness, because you told us it is our birthright. Bless us this day in all of our actions, in all of our work. May we love each other in our differences. May we love each other in our missteps. May we love each other in our choices and honor each other's journey. May we love always and in all ways ourselves, so we can love each other. And so it is. It is so. Ashe, Amen, and Amen.
Please welcome Executive Director at United Religions Initiative, Jerry White.
Greetings, and thank you, Anania, and thank you for the breath work, and thank you for the interfaith community, and thank you for friends and co-conspirators in faith and spirit. I think actually our work here as interfaith and interspiritual people can be dangerous, as we've been hearing. In my case, when I was 20 years old, I went on a spiritual pilgrimage, an Abrahamic pilgrimage to the Holy Land, and I ended up stepping on a landmine, and I lost my leg in that explosion. And I was young, and I didn't understand why there were landmines, tens of millions of them buried around the world. So later, I went all around the world and studied for about 10 years how to recover from trauma in war zones, and what does it mean to build resilience as an individual and as a community. And after studying in 20 different countries and 10,000 different war-traumatized survivors, there were three main things to summarize that came up. In the resilience literature, and whatever your favorite word is, well-being or flourishing, the science and the research bear out that there are three main requirements or categories. Number one, connection. No one survives alone. We need each other. Number two, security. Without basic psychological and physical safety, we're constantly under threat, can't thrive. Number three, maybe a funnier word, they call stimulation, creativity, aligning with nature, song, dance, culture. So we here at the Parliament have that. We have connection, we have security, and we have co-creation and cultures. That's wonderful. So this feels like a flourishing week together and an honor to participate. What I want to remind us, though, is how precious it is. In other countries around the world, in authoritarian regimes, in actually increasingly many places, these booths out here and all of us could be put in jail for doing this. Our booths would be burned down. People would die. I'm not trying to be depressive. I'm trying to say there's a shadow in the reality of the danger of being an interfaith pilgrim on a journey in the world today. So, for example, do you think the Uyghurs could be here if we were hosting in China? Do you think Bhai and atheists could convene something in Jordan or Iran? Do you think the Yazidis, our brothers and sisters in Iraq, could pull off a parliament there in Nineveh province? The Rohingya, even without citizenship, do you think they can come? Coptics, the list goes on and on about the attack on religious minorities, the basic violation of their human rights. And what we face today is this threat that I call religicide. And if spirituality and our diverse religions are destroyed through the murder of religions and spirituality, we will not be able to address the other three existential threats facing us today. Number one, war and nuclear annihilation. Number two, climate annihilation. Number three, youth annihilation. The alarming rising rates of suicide, addiction, overdose, depression, anxiety among our young people, shocking. And how many of you heard maybe this question or comment coming out of your children or your grandchildren or nieces and nephews, friends, young people saying, I don't think it's responsible to bring children into the world today. Well, that doesn't bode well for our species. Annihilation. So we have to get back to our connection, get back to providing security, and get back to co-creation. The world needs interfaith resilience and our movement and interspirituality more than ever to address these things. And that's the reason why I, personally and professionally, committed my life as the new executive director of United Religions Initiative, URI. And I've been doing this job for a year. Why? At first, I thought interfaith might be a little too fluffy and talking about rainbows and beauty and affirmations. And was it dealing with the shadow? But at URI, I think the recipe has the three ingredients for resilience. Number one, connection. We build community and interfaith cooperation circles all around the world. All you need is 3 different faiths, 7 different people, stir up in a circle, and voila, work on a problem in your backyard, in the local community. Connection, local, community, boom. Daily interfaith cooperation is what we call it. Number 2, end religiously motivated violence. Boom, religicide. The good news is the science of violence says that if we treat violence as an epidemic because it's contagious, and take a health approach, not a moralizing approach, to detect and contain and prevent the spread of this disease, the epidemic of violence in the world, we will do much better. We can save together millions of lives by combining spirituality and science on the ground where violence takes place. And number 3, a little bigger in the third part of our mission statement, creating cultures of peace, justice, and healing for the earth and all living beings. So eco-healing, to prevent climate annihilation, we need to co-create as interfaith, interspiritual beings alive and go dance and go play and go sing. So the recipe, I believe, is about building community resilience for moving from victimhood, all the bad headlines and sadnesses around the world that are real, 20 million people around the world facing right now threat of destruction and religicide. But moving from victimhood to survivorship, where we all learn to live positively, dynamically, interspiritually in the face of death, disease, disaster. So I just want to close by saying there's hope. Let's go out and let's actually connect with each other and others. Let's protect each other, ourselves, and others. And let's co-create an interfaith movement around the world that the world needs more than ever before. Thank you so much.
Please welcome third degree elder in Gardnerian Wicca, Zerega.
Is the sound good? All right. Thank you. My name is Zerega. I am a Wiccan priest, a member of the Earth Religions as a group, and I'm going to talk about the rise of fascist authoritarianism and what that implies for all of us. This rise encourages ambitious and ruthless people to seek fault lines in their societies where they can insert wedges, setting citizens against one another, and using the resulting distrust to seek power over others. This pattern is not just American, it is worldwide. One of the wedges that most attracts these people is religion. Our religions are among our most important personal commitments. Their superficial characteristics can differ enormously, even when at their deepest levels they are compatible. By focusing on the visible differences and ignoring the deeper similarities, the ruthless can cultivate society-wide divisions. Sometimes these wedges exist between different traditions. Other times they exist within a tradition. In all cases, minorities are most at risk because those seeking power try to weaponize the majority into assisting their quest for domination. A quest usually best accomplished by targeting minorities with different practices. It is easy to think the worst about those unlike ourselves. I stand here today as a representative of one of the Earth religions. We regard the Earth as sacred. Its cycles teach us lessons in life itself. Its other than human inhabitants are fellow voyagers on the adventure of life. Any particular community within this group is a small part of Earth religions as a whole, for each of us honors the sacred as it manifests within our land, be it a rainforest, high in the mountains, along a coast. Because of our focus on the sacredness of where we dwell, whether from time immemorial or seeking to revive the spiritual insights of old Scandinavia or England or Greece, our rituals and practices will differ as our homes differ. By honoring our own place, together we honor the Earth as a whole. We Wiccans are a kind of spiritual subspecies within the large community of Earth religions. As such, we find deep and profound meaning in the festivals we conduct over the seasons of the year, celebrating what we call the Wheel of Life. This wheel does not fit what people experience within a Borneo rainforest or northern taiga. Our underlying focus is still remarkably similar. like the common principles sustaining different ecologies. In our enormous variety, focus on place rather than text, and seemingly small size, we differ from the wider spiritual traditions that from a distance appear as a kind of spiritual monoculture. We are easily described by those seeking conflict as strange and perverse. All of us are a part of humanity's greater spiritual adventure, honoring sacred immanence and transcendence, the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, the love those with whom we live, and love for humanity as a whole, and for the earth. Sadly, like every religious tradition, the earth religions are not immune to the abuses of those seeking dominion. In the first part of the 20th century, there was an energetic German revival of pre-Christian indigenous practices. Some were used by Nazis to turn many Germans against Jews as alien. We see a similar effort today, with some heathen groups seeking to turn people against non-Aryan people in their society. Once in power, the Nazis crushed them as well. The same would happen here. But these successes are not unique to earth religions. Even more homogeneous religions evidence many different approaches, and this variety encourages the same efforts at division and dominion. We see a pattern at work among theocratic American evangelicals, among the Russian Orthodox, whose leaders seek to destroy other Orthodox churches, authoritarian Hindu groups seeking to destroy indigenous practices, long predating even their ancient tradition, and elsewhere. Depending on differences in power, a tradition who oppresses where they dominate is oppressed where they are a minority. All these examples and more serve the ultimate benefit not of spirit, but of domination. Division is what fascists seek. First between groups, then within groups, and ultimately even within themselves, hence their breathtaking hypocrisy. The more the divisions, the greater attraction of wielding power over those who differ. For this power, what dominates, what matters is the energy arising from exercising domination. The superficial garb it wears, Christian, heathen, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, or whatever it might be, is secondary, valued only when it serves as a vehicle for exercising domination and cast aside when convenient. There is no deeper logic uniting these attempts. An African practitioner of earth religion, Malidoma Some, puts this point well, writing, quote, "Power shrinks the person who brought it into the open and turns that person into a servant. The only way that overt power can remain visible is by being fed, and he who knows how to make power visible ends up trapped into keeping that power visible." We see that in politics in this country every day. Keeping to an earth religion perspective, domination is a kind of spiritual parasite, a powerful psychic thought form, gaining strength from the hosts it infects. Like the parasite that infects the brain of an ant, so it becomes a robot serving its master to its own harm. Domination clothes itself in the body of its host while it hollows itself out from within. This is what makes gatherings such as ours so important. Many of our traditions have been victims of domination in different places. The earth religions, perhaps most of all. Each of us loves our traditions while seeking here in Chicago to learn from and appreciate other expressions of the greater spiritual ecology encompassing us all. In doing so, we immunize ourselves against the poisons of mistrust and division that seek to dominate the world by turning many well-meaning people violently against other well-meaning people. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Mike Gallagher, and I represent Wisconsin's great 8th District in Congress, where I chair the Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. Thank you to the Parliament of World Religions for inviting me to speak. I'm sorry I couldn't be there to join you in person, but I wanted to share some insights from our work on the faithful who are in crisis inside China. The Chinese Communist Party is rewriting the Bible. You see, in the Gospel of St. John, Jesus famously defends a woman caught committing adultery against her accusers, saying, "Let he among you without sin cast the first stone." The chastened accusers then slink away, and Jesus says to the woman, "Has no one condemned you? Then neither do I condemn you. Go forth and sin no more." It's a beautiful story of forgiveness and mercy. Unless, of course, you're a CCP official. Then it's a story of a dissident challenging the authority of the state. A possible sneak preview of what a Bible with socialist characteristics might look like appeared in a Chinese university textbook in 2020. The rewritten Gospel of John excerpt ends not with mercy, but with Jesus himself stoning the adulterous woman to death. Across Hanan province, local CCP officials forced Protestant churches to replace the Ten Commandments with Xi Jinping quotes like "Thou shalt have no other gods before me," became diktats like "resolutely guard against the infiltration of Western ideology." At the 19th Party Congress, Chairman Xi declared, "We will insist on the Sinicization of Chinese religions and provide active guidance for religion and socialism to coexist." Let me translate. Xi Jinping has no problem with the first commandment, just so long as he and the CCP are playing the role of God. Only 5 faiths are recognized in China. Less established faiths face even more intense persecution. The Falun Gong remains an unfamiliar spiritual practice to many outside China, but the State Department estimated that at times half of the population of China's re-education through labor camps or modern gulags were Falun Gong adherents, and thousands were reportedly tortured to death. But it's in Tibet and Xinjiang that we see the CCP's unsanitized, brutal attitude towards religion. While other faiths are persecuted throughout China, Buddhists and Muslims in the far west of the country are facing, quite simply, the attempted annihilation of their faith, and in some cases, their population. The CCP is committing genocide, the crimes above all crimes, in Xinjiang. The CCP is also perpetrating a slow-motion cultural genocide, targeting the ethno-religious minority groups like the Uyghurs, Tibetans, Southern Mongolians, Kyrgyz, and others. Buddhist statues are bulldozed, monasteries are gutted, mosques are destroyed. Children are forcibly separated from families and packed off to colonial boarding schools, where religion and native languages are often forbidden. Yet even under intense persecution, faith persists throughout China. Through my work in Congress, I've heard unthinkable stories of religious persecution, but I've also listened to accounts of underground churches, brave clergy, and steadfast believers every bit as courageous as saints of the early church. In an interview with The Guardian, the pastor of one Chinese church stated, "In this war, in Xinjiang, in Shanghai, in Beijing, in Chengdu, the rulers have chosen an enemy that can never be imprisoned, the soul of man." The pastor ended with an assessment that we must make come true. The PRC rulers are doomed to lose. Thank you.
Please welcome founder and director of the Elijah Interfaith Institute in Jerusalem, Rabbi Alon Gottstein.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, something one can't take for granted. It's about community. It's about a story. It's about a story that's been going on for 25 years. And I want to focus on the last part of it and the future of that story, because I'd like to invite all of you and all of your friends to be part of an unfolding story, a story of a community. I'd like to begin the story by showing a clip that will provide us with a context of the movement of Friends Across Faiths, which we are launching here. We came to the Parliament in order to take the notion of friendship that we have been developing now for a number of years amongst premier religious leaders and to turn it into a movement of education, prayer, encounter, and service that I invite all of you to join, and the next 6.56 minutes will be devoted to that. Let's begin with a video.
We are called, as we like to say, to look into one another's eyes in order to see more deeply and in order to recognize the beauty of God in every living human being.
Our advice is to make friends to followers of all religions.
Muy importante porque la mía, mi vida religiosa se enriqueció con explicaciones de él. Se enriqueció muchísimo, ¿no? Y supongo que también algunas mías, ¿no? Bueno.
Fue nuestra vocación religiosa la que propició el que nos encontremos en la vida.
No matter from which side of the mountain you are climbing, we should be helping each other so that we can all get to the same place. So there is need for people to make friends.
وألا نبحث عن أوجه الخلافات التي تختص بكل طائفة عن الأخرى.
Personal contact, personal friendship. Then we can exchange deeper level of experience.
Honor other religions like you do your own.
We need to get together and know one another, just to discover and explore those commonalities.
That starts a process where prejudices go away, where new insights are born, and where basically hope is born.
It's not complicated. I would say to everyone, start with sharing what we all share, which is the pleasure of conversation.
One of the wonderful things about spending time with people completely unlike you is you discover how much you have in common. The same fears, the same hopes, the same concerns.
I think I'll keep it very simple. It's probably time to talk less, listen more.
അങ്ങനെ വിശ്വസൗഹാർദ്ദ ഒരു യാഥാർത്ഥ്യമാകട്ടെ.
Thank you for that. Thank you for screening that. And I'd like to move on to the next steps. And the next steps are what lead to the Friends Across Faiths initiatives. The initial is FAFI. All football, all soccer lovers will know FIFA. We are not FIFA, we are FAFI. So we have FAFI, learn, pray, and serve as the mission. So here's what happened. Following the release before the COVID of this phenomenal statement that had a reach of 200 million, we went ahead to create the Friendship Declaration. Friendship Declaration was developed by 60 leaders from the Elijah Board of World Religious Leaders. We're not going to be able to read it through, but just to show you the scope of it, it's all available on the fafi.global website. Fafi.global, there'll be a QR code at the end. The important thing is that we want religious leaders to sign the Friendship Declaration and to give it greater power. And we want everyone to download resources for learning more and understanding about friendship. And from the initial campaign and from the Friendship Declaration, we seek to create the Friends Across Faiths movement that will provide each and every one of you, religious leaders and members of their communities, with the range of learning opportunities, encounter, online programs, pilgrimage, activities in the community, global chain prayers, opportunities for meeting in small groups, in large groups, in short, taking the notion of friendship and creating a global community based on that. Initially, following this launch, this movement will have two foci. The first focus is on the very notion of friendship. We will be releasing about 40 teachings of videos by religious leaders explaining the value of friendship across religions as a religious value, not just as a social need. The second track that is being run by my partner, Sanmeet Ahuja, a global climatarian, I can't find the word for it, activist for climate, who has a vast experience with world-class projects in India and elsewhere, will be a track of working on religion and sustainability and environmental issues. Those two tracks will be launched with content, activity, invitation, and all we are asking for you is something very simple. We would like you to join. We would be grateful if at the end of this particular presentation, you don't clap. The claps are nice. I'd much rather you used your hands for something else. With one hand, hold your phone. With the other hand, scan. Go on the website. Sign as someone who would like to remain in contact, part of that movement, and to receive the information of what a global network of friendship, to learn, pray, serve, and meet, can bring to your life. Share it with others. Help us to grow a movement. The Parliament has been very excited at the thought of the Fafi movement growing out of the Parliament. I'm grateful to the Parliament for making it possible. I'm grateful to you for signing up. Please go here. And I look forward to future opportunities to serve, to encounter, to come together. Thank you very much. No claps. Phones out. Scan that QR code. Sign up. Keep the claps for the Fafi actual work. I clap you. Thank you. Oh, God bless you. Thank you.
Please welcome Virti dancers representing Jainism and JSMC.
Hello everyone. We are here to represent Jainism and Jain Society of Metropolitan Chicago, JSMC. Our group name is Virti. Virti, one who has a special interest in the inheritance of Lord Veer, is called Virti. Liberation from the sins of the world is called Virti. Virti means high interest in spirituality. Virti means to put full stop to anger, arrogance, illusion, and greed, to go towards moksha. Today, 8 super dedicated, fun-loving, spiritual, young JSMC ladies are trying to bring Virtis to all of us by their dance. Let's enjoy our performance and get painted in the color of Virti. Thank you.
आओ हम मिलकर इस रास्ते पे कदम बढ़ाए, ये जैन धर्म के मोती घर घर में बिखराए। सत्य अहिंसा है, समता का पथ है ये, महावीर का शासन है, मिलके गाओ रे। जैनम जयतु शासनम, हो पावन जैन धर्मोस्तु मंगलम। जैनम जयतु शासनम, हो पावन जैन धर्मोस्तु मंगलम।
सुखदाई है घड़ी आई, वैराग की लहर छाई। सुखदाई है घड़ी आई, वैराग की लहर छाई। तन मन में जीवन में सुर झंकार आई, बांसुरियां सारंगियां भरे त्याग रंग हो। मन आज हर के गुरुवर हो, मन आज हर के गुरुवर हो। प्यारो लागे प्रभुवर हो, मन आज हर के गुरुवर हो।
वीरनो वेश एधरे सत्व सिंहनु धरे मुगते जवानी तैयारी गम वीरति प्यारी। शूर साधके बने मन समता मार में सिद्ध थवानी तैयारी गम वीरति प्यारी। दुखनो दरियो आ संसार खारो छे, जिनवरनी नैयानो आधार छे। प्रभु ओणमा रहे घोर कष्ट ने सहे, चरणों पासक रहे आनंदे गम वीरति प्यारी।
Please welcome the founding president of the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation, Brian Grimm.
Good morning. morning. I want to begin with a question, and not a usual question. How many of you have a daughter or a niece? Raise your hand. Okay, even if you don't, imagine that your daughter or niece is sitting beside you. She's 15 years old, and you bring her to these conferences all the time. She's been coming with you to these every year, different conferences, and she said, I have to go to the bathroom. So, yeah, and she's been in and out. This is the third day, so she goes out, but she doesn't come back. And she doesn't come back. And you have this keynote speaker up here, and you really wanted to hear him, but she doesn't come back. So you go out, you look for her, you can't find her, you start talking to security, and nobody's seen her. Well, this was a story that was shared by the Vice President of Dell Technologies at our annual conference, the Religious Freedom and Business Foundation's annual conference, Dare to Overcome, a couple years ago. And it was a true story, only it was a father who had been taking his daughter to the Mavericks baseball game in Texas all the time. They had season tickets. And she left to go to the restroom like she's done many times before and never came back. She had been kidnapped, trafficked, and when the police came, they said, go back to your hometown and report it there because we think it's probably a runaway. He did what they said. Meanwhile, she ended up in Oklahoma and was being sexually trafficked. The family didn't know what to do. Someone suggested that they reach out to a guy that helps with these things. And he said, send me a picture. And they had no idea what he could do. He ran facial recognition software, and within a couple hours, found her on porn sites being trafficked. Eventually, they were able to rescue her after a week. In some ways, that's a happy ending, but not. It's an ending that continues to be tragic for the girl. Well, the Vice President of Dell Technologies shared this because they, as a company, had embarked on a mission to combat human trafficking. And let me back up and where that came from. Several years ago, Dell Technologies merged with EMC, another technology company. And at EMC, they had an interfaith employee resource group, company-sponsored, employee-led faith group for people of faith to have a voice in the company. Dell Technologies didn't. Austin-based Dell Technologies, they had a huge Christian Bible study that was unofficial, but they had never become an official part of the diversity groups in the company. Well, when they merged with EMC, the Christians said, we might have more impact if we would bring this interfaith group in and really channel our efforts together with people of all faiths within the company. And they did, and they started Dell Interfaith. And as they met together, they said, what causes should we work on besides celebrating our own uniqueness and being an ally for each other? And human trafficking was on their concern, what was on their minds. So they started a global campaign to combat human trafficking, held it in 36 different countries, worked with a group, a faith-based group, A21, Abolitionists for the 21st Century, to combat human trafficking. And in fact, they realized that this wasn't just a concern for people of faith. They approached the head of diversity at Dell and said, we think everybody would be concerned about this. And that was the first pan-diversity, pan-employee resource group initiative ever in the history of Dell Technologies, led because the Christian group combined with the interfaith group, they worked together, and they had people give testimonies. The head of the LGBT group said, often LGBT kids are cast out from their families and they're picked up and trafficked. The head of the disabilities group said, same with disabilities. People with disabilities are often targeted and trafficked. And then the head of the black group got up and she said, when we're trafficked, they treat us as criminals. So this interfaith impact not only resulted in educating Dell's hundreds of thousands of workers around the world on what they can do to combat human trafficking, they raised tens of thousands of dollars for this effort. And then at our conference, when they shared this, Other companies, we had American Airlines, Texas Instruments, Ford Motor Company, all raising their hands and saying, we want to do the same. These are the faith groups, the interfaith groups or faith-based groups in the companies. Equinix, a big data storage company, did the same, and they did a global initiative mirroring exactly what Dell did. So the head of Equinix, this data storage company, she said, you know, I never imagined I could have the kind of social impact I can have through my company now that they've opened the doors to faith. She said, I thought I'd have to do it when I retired, but the companies are giving me a platform to have social impact. So, you know, I'm talking about how business and faith, when combined, create strong and resilient communities. But this isn't just happening in a few companies. American Express, American Airlines, PayPal, Dell Technologies, Intuit, all these companies are engaging in this. So at the Religious Freedom Business Foundation, we shine a light on this work and share it. So I want to end with 3 takeaways. First is majority faiths often have more impact when working with other faiths. Second, faith brings concerns that don't fit neatly into other diversity categories, but transcends and empowers all identities. And the last is the next time you Google something, take an American Airlines flight like I'm going to do this afternoon, turn on a Dell computer powered by Intel chips, buy something by American Express or PayPal, or do your taxes on TurboTax, say a prayer for the interfaith groups operating as official company groups in all these companies, affecting millions of people, not only in the United States and around the world. We're having the same kind of movement in the United Kingdom. We have a similar initiative in India. Salesforce, the big customer software company, has their faith force operating globally in their largest chapters in India. So next time you think of these companies, don't just think of the products they have and that they sell, but think of the people in them. Say a prayer for them. Ask God to expand this work, and also pray for the hundreds of companies that haven't yet adopted this faith-friendly approach that empowers people of faith to love their neighbor and make a difference in their communities. Thank you.
Please welcome psychiatrist, analyst, and internationally known speaker and author, Jean Shinoda Bolen.
Hi, everybody. It's quite a week that all of us have been here, and there has been a kind of where we end up and what we hear is not exactly planned. Many of them are accidental new connections. And there does seem to be a number of women at this meeting. And I think it's very clear that the evolution of humanity and the planet may depend on women and a shift from patriarchy to an egalitarian society. And egalitarian doesn't mean just men and women, because there's a wide gender group. It's about love. It's about who you love and who you trust, and our own experience of having support to be who we were meant to be, and what we believe in, and will we speak up? Well, if we only have, like, the end of this decade for those scientists who have said that the planet is in real trouble the way we are deforesting the planet, and the way that the temperature is going up and up this year as you've experienced it, well, maybe we can still turn it around. and maybe we won't. I mean, we are actually in a crisis. And my idea of what we are doing here is to speak about evolution or destruction of humanity and our planet. That's really where we are. To evolve. What if we evolved as human beings and moved into the heart chakra area in which we felt ourselves not superior to all life on this planet, but as part of the life on this planet? Because that is the experience of human beings. We came in with the words that we are the dominant quality, but we're among the life on this planet, but we are specifically evolving in certain ways that what if in this particular time where the temperature is going up, where there are at least 3 countries with nuclear weapons, that the men in charge could use it in order to maintain that they are in charge and forget it, the rest of the world? Well, we are in a time of enormous potential of growth or risk. And I think often that is very true of individual human beings. My work is as a psychiatrist, as a Jungian analyst, and the sense is often that one comes into therapy in order to evolve and grow into the parts of yourself that you didn't have an opportunity to grow into it. In fact, if you spoke up from the very beginning and you weren't the kid that the family expected you to be, it was squashed and suppressed. But what if there is on the planet now, among this audience and among the youngsters related to this audience, what if we are human beings who have over who knows how long evolved? What if there are many in this audience that you might think of yourself as old souls, that you have been in previous lives, you have had opportunities to have suffered? Now what? It may be just this life, but it may be previous lives as well. When you run into your young children and you feel like this is not just a kid, this is an old soul who happens to be running around like a kid, but there's some quality of soulfulness that you recognize often as this is a person who probably lived through many other lifetimes. We don't know that. But what if? What if we now have a generation or so of people growing into adulthood and people growing who are adults now and are moving into the next stage? And what if the next stage of evolution of soul into spirit is where there can be the connection between the world of the spirit and soul and us still in our bodies, where we have choice, where we have actions? What if? What if right now, many of you who are older may have retired from whatever you normally do? What are you going to do with the rest of the energy of your life? Now, it may be that during this time of ending this decade, that the end of the decade will be the evolution to the next stage of humanity, when we begin to realize what we began to see for the first time when Edgar Mitchell and the other astronauts went to the moon for the first time. Do you remember seeing Earth from outer space? No national boundaries. This beautiful, beautiful planet in the middle of the sky, of blackness, and the sense of clouds and this lovely place that is planet Earth. Do you remember that? And it's felt at the level of the heart chakra, which is a source of ability that we have from the heart. It's called love. love is something, the more we give away, the more we have in us. And the more we have given away, the more there is in the world. And essentially, that is the essential energy that we need more of all the time. That we need to give away, we need to love. And any of you who are teachers, therapists, whatever you do, whatever you do in a realm that you love, you're giving energy and you're getting energy back. And somehow to stay with that sense of having love in your heart and being here on this planet now, when humanity is between what is and what can be. So, as a psychiatrist and a Jungian analyst and an optimistic person who senses that whatever is in us that can evolve into our actions makes us become who we came here to be. So may you become who you were meant to be this now, next now, right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Please welcome globally recognized monk from India and founder of the Swami Chidananda Savashram organization, Swami Yatidharmananda.
Let's do a prayer. Sadashiva Samarambham Sankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Namo Bhagavate Shivanandaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Chidanandaya. Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pasyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhave. Radiant immortal Atman, blessed children of the divine, this humble servant of worshipful Saint Swami Chidananda of Shivananda Ashram, Rishikesh, India, offers you respectful salutations and extends to your noble self his most heartfelt and loving greetings. Through prayers, ancient followers of Sanatana Dharma, that we refer to as Hinduism today, have sought to bring home to mankind the lofty message of unity of existence, the oneness of all life. We have the declaration in the Vedas, duality is the cause of all sorrow. From duality springs fear, great fear. The one without a second, that alone appears as the entire universe. The entire universe that we see is nothing other than the universal reality, and that alone is. If we live in this awareness, we shall feel oneness spontaneously, from which springs real happiness, from which our conscience can become clear, and our viveka, that is discernment, may arise. Let us pray. May we all awaken our conscience, establish ourselves in our viveka, discernment. May we all think and feel the spirit of oneness. May we all talk about the true fundamental oneness of spirit in mankind. May we all propagate this great ideal of oneness through our lives, individually and collectively. May we radiate oneness in thought, word, and deed. May we daily pray that all mankind may soon awaken to the glorious realization of the fundamental unity of mankind in the spirit, in the Atman. Though we may be different in body, in mind, in intellect, in the spirit we are all one and one alone. Ekam Sat, one is truth. May we be established in this awareness and be free. The great intuitive wisdom of ancient Upanishadic seers and sages of transcendental experience has always been a message of oneness and unity. If all creation indeed is the Virat Swarup, the mighty manifest form of the supreme reality, the great reality, these great luminaries are verily the matchless diamonds, peerless gems. And I was lucky to witness such a veritable gem, my Guru Sri Swami Chidanandaji Maharaj, the humble serene saint of Sivananda Ashram, Rishikesh, India, fondly referred to as the Saint Francis of India. He's one of the greatest interfaith pioneers that the world has seen. Being acknowledged as an authority to speak on Christianity by Pope John Paul II, helping people rebuild a mosque in Orissa, India, he extended his full faith, vision, and support to the Council of Parliament of the World's Religions when it revived itself in 1993. He was one of the 12 honorary presidents of the 1993 convening. His life and teachings are perfectly aligned with the theme of this parliament, and especially relevant at this juncture, where the insensitive blind forces bent on profit and purely selfish means are misleading generations and generations of human society towards chaos. Universal concepts and the right type of education are construed, corrupted, and replaced with education that instills fear, greed, jealousy, and competition, which create differences and spread hatred. Let us make a pledge that we will turn our attention from such wrong examples and turn our gaze towards these authentic ones for inspiration. Let us all take their life and their teaching seriously, and with earnest determination emulate in every detail the lofty examples of their lives. Let us all become the living spirit of Chidananda and radiate onto all parts of the earth the light of Niskama Karma, motiveless service, bhakti, devotion, sadachar or righteous conduct, dhyana or spiritual meditation, and jnana, wisdom of the self. Let us all pray that from this convening, life-giving waters of knowledge of oneness from the ancient yoga and Vedanta shall stream forth to nourish the coming generations of human society and make fertile the garden of human hearts, so that in them may blossom forth the flowers of goodness, of kindness and compassion, of selflessness and sympathetic service, of noble virtue and simplicity. Let us pray that the Parliament's activities ever strive to inspire, urge, and encourage people everywhere to take to selfless, altruistic activity for common will. Let the Parliament continue to work in fulfillment of its central aim of propagation of the most precious living idealism of oneness and serving the global human family for their ethical enlightenment and moral uplift. I bow down to you, to the divinity that is within you. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much.
Please welcome retired Professor of Religion, Philosophy, and Asian Studies at St. Olaf College, Dr. Anantanand Rambachan.
Namaste and greetings, my dear brothers and sisters. It is a very special honor to speak these few words of reflection with you about the ways in which the Hindu tradition connects with the theme of the 2023 Parliament. I will certainly lift up some central themes of the Hindu tradition, but I also want to do so in a spirit of self-critical reflection. I think it is very easy in a forum like this to speak about our tradition in its ideals, and not also speak about our flaws. It is easy to speak of our ideals and of the flawed reality of other traditions. So please allow me also to do so today self-critically. When I think about the Parliament's theme, a call to conscience, defending freedom and human rights, I begin with the teaching of the Vedas, the sacred sources of the Hindu tradition, that the sacred infinite is that from which all beings originate that by which they are sustained, and that to which they all return. The infinite is not a national or a tribal deity, but the source of all life and all existence. Having a single source, all beings, we all belong to one interdependent community. With the richness of diversity, we constitute a single family. But interdependence means also obligations. We often speak of interdependence without emphasizing the ethical and moral obligations of recognizing interdependent existence. The obligations to care for each other. The obligation to be receivers, but also to be givers. Having a common source and existing interdependently are important ways of understanding our unity. But there is another significant insight of the Hindu tradition, which is that the sacred infinite from which we've all come, in which we all exist and to which we all return, exists equally and identically in everyone. The divine presence is not limited by anything: nation, gender, religion, sex, or age. Nothing exists outside of God, and nothing exists but for the fact that it receives its sustenance from God. The truth of divinity abiding in all hearts is the most fundamental source of human dignity, intrinsic dignity, the equal worth of every being. So the worth of the human being is not derived from the state. It is not reducible to economic or political considerations. It is our theological antibody to the instrumentalization of human beings and the denial of their personhood. We cannot claim to acknowledge and to honor God while dishonoring and demeaning each other. We cannot give support to any historical structure that oppresses, exploits, impedes the ability of human beings to flourish and to joyfully celebrate their existence. Divine inclusivity is indeed the source of human dignity, but this truth invites us to an even deeper way of seeing human beings. It summons us to encounter each other with reverence. The logic of the teaching that the divine exists intimately in each of us presents us with an awe-filled recognition that every human encounter is, in fact, an encounter with God. For good historical reasons, our contemporary discourse about rights, human freedom, is dominated by the language of human rights. The contribution of this language is important. It must not be underestimated. But such language has its limits. It legally binds us to tolerance. It does not arouse delight in our differences, nor does it inspire relationships that flow from an awakening to the sacred divine in each of us. But profound religious teachings about human dignity and equality become irrelevant if not applied to social reality. And if these teachings do not inspire us to commitment and to efforts to overcome structures of injustice and oppression within our own communities. Our understanding of human nature requires diligence and discernment in identifying such systems. To see patriarchy, to see women as inferior to men, to prefer the boy child over the girl child, to mistreat the elderly, to ascribe unequal worth and to demean people on the basis of birth, to discriminate and to practice violence against gay people are all fundamental contradictions to our deepest teachings. To become advocates for freedom and human rights, we must bridge the gulf between the spiritual and the social. Equality in the spiritual sphere is not enough. It must be manifested in social reality. Let me also end on a self-critical note. We must be vigilant about ideologies within our own traditions that advocate narrow loyalties and identities, that set groups against each other, and which support the rights only of those who share our identities. Today, the ideology of Hindu nationalism champions a definition of national identity that privileges a Hindu identity and marginalizes those who are not included, especially Muslims and Christians. In our call to conscience and in defense of human freedom and rights, we must denounce all such ideologies, or we are not faithful to our traditions. We must denounce those ideologies that wields the power of the state as an instrument for marginalizing others and commends benefits to those of a single religious identity. We must become the champions, eloquent champions of an inclusive and pluralistic vision that allows different groups in our communities to flourish, to be safe, and to enjoy equal rights. May all beings be happy is a very famous prayer, ancient prayer of the Hindu tradition. But this must not only be a prayer, it must become a vision for social justice and for the equal rights of all human beings. Thank you.
Please welcome from Roots, the Palestinian-Israeli grassroots initiative for understanding, nonviolence, and transformation, Rabbi Hanan Schlesinger, Khaled Abu Awad, and Khalil Sareg.
I come from the Holy Land, but life on the ground is anything but holy. Jews and Palestinians live in geographical proximity, but actually in separate worlds. There is very little connection or interaction between Jews and Palestinians. Between the two sides, one finds ignorance and prejudice, resentment, fear, and hostility. Furthermore, Jews have all the power, and Palestinians suffer from deep institutional neglect and discrimination. People are dying every day because of these conditions. For 33 years, I had lived my life there in the Holy Land, but I'd never had real contact with a Palestinian. For me, they were like the gray, drab scenery that passes in the background of the movie, my movie, but they're not part of the plot. They were transparent, or I was blind. I lived as if my story, my Jewish story, was the only story in the land. There was no other story, no other people. Today I know better. After 9.5 years of deep and difficult, painful and productive, challenging and cathartic interactions with my Palestinian neighbors, I know that there are two peoples, two stories in the Holy Land. And to live your life as if there is only one story is to mistake part of the truth for the whole truth. And to do that is very close to falsehood, and I don't want to be there any longer. After about 9.5 years ago, I helped to found Roots, the Israeli-Palestinian Grassroots Initiative for Understanding Nonviolence and Transformation. Roots created something almost unheard of, a joint Palestinian-Jewish community center, where local people from the two sides come together almost every day for social, educational, and religious activities. These include photography workshops, music workshops, trauma therapy, interfaith dialogue and study, Jewish and Muslim religious celebrations, playback theater, learning the other's culture, religion, lifestyle, women's group, children's group, youth groups, summer camps, political discussions, etc. We also focus on community activism, trying to make Palestinian lives better on the ground by focusing on legal issues, freedom of movement, sewage, building rights, etc. 90% of the thousands of Israeli Jews and Palestinians who come to our programs have never, ever met the other side. They come with their anger and their fear, with their prejudice and traumas from lives lived in the shadow of violence and attacks. The first thing that happens in our programs is humanization of the other. He or she turns out not to be the demon that we imagined. We discover a human being on the other side. We are surprised that they're human, and we're often embarrassed that we're surprised, but we're still surprised. Humanization is difficult. At the beginning, cognitive dissonance is created, and then unsettling empathy. The process begins almost immediately, but it takes a long, long time to sink in. But that is not the end of it. There's a second level, which is the recognition of the national identity of the other side. Israeli Jews and Palestinians, by and large, construct their identities upon the erasure of the other side's identity. Both sides think they can tell the other side who they are. The Israeli Jews say there's no such thing as Palestinians. There never was a Palestinian state. You're just an Arab, so go back to Saudi Arabia where you came from. And the Palestinians say that the Quran greatly respects Judaism, but it's a religion, it's a faith, it's not a people, so go back to Eastern Europe where you came from. But after you listen to the other side tell their stories week after week and month after month, you begin to realize that you know nothing of who they are. You have to listen, and it's so hard to listen and let them tell you who they are, and they may listen when you tell who you are. The Jewish-Israeli participants in Roots have learned that there is such a thing as the Palestinian people, and there is such a thing as the land of Palestine, and Palestinians belong to Palestine. The Palestinian participants in Roots have learned that there is such a thing as the Jewish people, and there is such a thing in the land of Israel, and the Jews belong to the land of Israel. And here now is the most excruciatingly difficult, the most gut-wrenching, the most ostensibly traitorous thing. The borders of the historical land of Israel and the borders of historical Palestine are the exact same borders. Both peoples belong to the same piece of land, and no one is leaving, no people is going anywhere. Our message is that both Jews and Palestinians belong to the same land. We must both recognize the other side's identity and the other side's belonging to the land. We must find a way to fit two peoples into one land, and the way to do that is to first fit two truths into one heart. According to our understanding, the political conflict between the Jewish Israelis and the Palestinians is at its core a conflict over identity. In order to solve the conflict, we must overcome our hubris of exclusivity and learn to accept and recognize the other side's identity and their rootedness in the land. Through our grassroots people-to-people peace building, Roots is preparing the human hearts for a future political settlement founded on equality, freedom, human rights, dignity, and security for both peoples in that little strip of land that we both call home. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Khalid Abu Awad. I'm also one of the founders of Roots. We came from a country, we call it Palestine, they call it Israel, God call it the Holy Land. I love the name, the Holy Land. From there, we came, Muslim, Christian, and Jewish, together as a partner, as a brothers, to spread the message of peace to everyone in this world, that the peace can happen in our area. I am a son of a refugee Palestinian family. The story of my family with this conflict starts since 1948. 1948, we became a refugee family. Me and my brothers, we grown with many questions. Why we are refugee? Where's our land? Where's my father, my grandfather's house? Israel took it. It's our main enemy. They have no right here. With this, we grown. 1987, the first Intifada. We, as a Palestinian family, became part of the leadership of the Intifada against Israel. And this is caused to all of us to be arrested by Israel. 1993, the day that the peace agreement have been signed between us, the Palestinian, and the Israel state. We, Abu Awad's family, my family, we accept and we support the agreement. For us, the agreement is that we are two people who have been fighting until we sign the peace agreement. Now we should close the page of fighting. What's happened, happened. And we should open a new page that we all live together or side by side in peace in the Holy Land. This is how we understand the peace. So we decide to stop all our peace, our activities, political activities, and waiting for the peace to be achieved by our leaders until 2000. In 2000, when my first brother, Yusuf Abu Awad, 31 years old, have been killed by the Israel army, the first reaction that we said, we asked, where's the peace? This is not what we are waiting for. We are waiting to live in peace with each other. Why my brother have been killed? What's happened? What did he do? And where is the peace? The story of my brother Yusuf challenged us. Like, you have to decide now. Are you going to continue supporting the peace? Are you going back to revenge? What's your decision? It's a serious examination for our humanity. I'm happy that our decision, after a long discussion inside my family, and we are a very Palestinian serious family, we decide that the one who killed my brother, he don't know him personally. My brother Yusuf, whatever the name of this soldier, they don't know each other personally. They met with two identities, the Palestinian identity, the Israel Jewish identity. And this is what makes the argue and what caused this violence. How we can change this, how we can have peace. The final decision, we said that the peace cannot be achieved by signing a paper. The peace is a process of change inside us. Without this, we will not have peace. Since that day until now, we as a Palestinian family put all our effort, all our power in our society to allow people from both sides, Palestinian and Israel, to meet each other, not as enemy, not to argue. A meeting based in respect and dignity, listening to each other, and together as a partner, trying to find the way to go out of this circle of hatred and violence that took from us a high price from the life of our sons, from our blood, from our happiness, from our future, and our generation's future. This is roots. This is what we are believe and doing. Thank you.
Good afternoon. In 1948, the State of Israel was born. And as a result of the war of creation of Israel, more than 700,000 Palestinians were ethnically cleansed. One of these families that were forced to leave their homes and cities were my grandparents' family. Before 48, they've lived in a city called Mashdal, located in the southern part of historical Palestine, today within the border of Israel. In 48, they were forced to leave their homes, moving to the Gaza Strip. And they lost their right for their property, they lost their right to return to their cities, and they lost their homes. They lost everything. And I was born to a family in the Gaza Strip, a refugee family that has inherited this trauma of Nakba, of what happened in 48. And being born to such a family that suffered in 48 what happened, and that are still suffering the consequences of the Israeli occupation, has been very formative of my childhood. In Gaza, I never met an Israeli, and I never met a Jew, but I've always heard about what they done to my family in 1948, about the destruction of our city, about the confiscation of our property, and these were very real things that affected our social, economical situation in Gaza. I never met an Israeli, and I never met a Jew, but I felt the destruction, and I witnessed the death of the Israeli Air Forces bombing the Gaza Strip. Living in such a context of total separation, occupation, and suppression, one cannot think of the other as a human being. And how can one do such a thing? And one cannot see the other, even worse, as a partner for peace. How can it be when all these things are happening? I've always told myself, these are my enemies. I cannot see them but as my enemy. And it's my destiny to pick up arms and fight them until we liberate Palestine, until the last one of them would leave this country because of what happened for us in 48 and what is still happening to us today. However, it was the words of our Lord Jesus Christ that challenged me to take a step out of my comfort zone. The Gospel of Matthew says, love your enemy and pray for those who persecuted you. Taking these words seriously and taking my faith seriously has pushed me to meet Israelis for the first time in my life, and has pushed me to not only talk to them and get to know them in my own context and in my own lens, but trying to see them as they are. Meeting and engaging in dialogue with Israeli Jews has not only turned me to a peace activist who seek peace between Israelis and Palestinians and who still seek the liberation of the Palestinian people, but to understand the other side as they understand themselves, not how I understand them. It also taught me the importance of not disconnecting our interfaith dialogue from temporary matters. Yes, as people of faith, we should be discussing things of God, things upon which we agree and we disagree. But moreover, we are also citizens of earthly kingdoms. And most of our conflicts emerge from these earthly kingdoms or over these earthly kingdoms. Today in the Holy Land, Christian, Muslims, and Jews are striving for better religious dialogue. We're searching for grounds of commonality and for ways to disagree peacefully and respectfully. Today in the Holy Land, religion is being used by radicals to isolate the other and to exclude the other. The Jewish supremacist ideology that leads some members of the cabinet in Israel has left no room for anyone but the Jewish people in Israel. As the Minister of Finance, Mr. Smotrich, have clearly stated in his decisive plan, that Palestinians have no room in this land unless they accept the Jewish supremacy. They either will be expelled or killed, but they cannot be equal. But it even gets worse. It's not only Palestinians are targeted today within the Holy Land, but any religious minority between the rivers and the sea. Yes, the current situation should alarm us to the severe danger. However, it should also encourage us to act quickly to save religion from those extremists who have hijacked it. And that's why I support the work of Roots, where we're bringing Palestinians and Israelis to meet each other, but especially we're bringing religious people, traditionalist people, who have more tendency toward extremism. It's only through bringing them together and showing them the other side as they are and broader their understanding of each other and increasing the spirit of tolerance that this is possible. Lastly, in the grave of injustice and danger happening today in Israel and Palestine, let us keep our hope for peace and reconciliation. Let's demand that there will be end to the Israeli occupation and oppression. And let us demand that there will be democracy for everyone, Israelis and Palestinians. Thank you.
Numberless people of all regions and religions strive to live their lives in solidarity with one another and to work for the authentic fulfillment of their vocations. Nevertheless, all over the world we find endless hunger, deficiency, and need. Millions of people are without work and are exploited by poor wages. Forced to the edges of society with their possibilities for the future destroyed, in many lands the gap between the poor and the rich, between the powerful and the powerless, is immense. In the great ancient religious and ethical traditions of humankind, we find the directive, "You shall not steal," or "Deal honestly and fairly." There is no global peace if the plight of the poorest billions of humans on this planet, particularly women and children, is to be improved. The economy must be structured more justly. In the developed countries, a distinction must be made between necessary and limitless consumption, between justified and unjustified uses of natural resources, and between a profit-only and a social, beneficial, and ecologically oriented market economy. We must develop a spirit of compassion with those who suffer, with special care for the children, the aging, the poor, the disabled, the refugees, and the lonely. We must value a sense of moderation and modesty instead of the unquenchable greed for money, prestige, and consumption. We invite all people, whether religious or not, to do the same. The Parliament of the World's Religions calls all people, religious or not, to commit themselves to the values and principles of a global ethic. The Parliament also calls for people all over the world to signal their support for the global ethic by signing it. To show your support or to learn more, visit our website at www.parliamentofreligions.org/global-ethic-signatures.
Please welcome CEO of the Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation and Trustee of the Parliament of the World's Religions, Deborah Boudreau.
Wow. Thank you, everyone. to continue the support. The community plenary is a long process. We see every interfaith religious, you share your thoughts. We all come together. We create our own community circularly. Everyone, we share our compassion. Everyone, we share our solutions. Everyone, we share our stories of life. On behalf of Buddha's Tzu Foundation and 2023 Parliament of World Religions Board of Trustees, please accept our sincere appreciation. In this dynamic environment, we feel so many peace, justice, and we feel like the freedom. We also feel like the compassion. We have our own destiny. From here, we're going to go back to our community. When you see the video clips, let me share with you. Buddha Tzu Foundation, Dharma Master Zeng Yan, she cannot be here with you all. But what can we share with you after the video clips? The economic justice. What can you take away? This is the bamboo bank I'm holding on my hands. Listen. The sounds of love. The love from our brothers, our sisters. Every one of you can become a mentor to deliver your love and care to all the vulnerable populations, all the vulnerable in the communities. At this moment, in Maui, Hawaii, so many brothers and sisters suffering their loss of their homes. They are waiting for every one of us to deliver our care and love. This kind of care and love in action rely on every interfaith, rely on every one of you. A small change can make a big difference. The other community stories I would like to share with you. Every one of us, we can become someone's mentor. We can become someone's leading light. Your compassion, your heart. A lot of time, it's just a simple care, a hug, a sitting together, listening to others' story. When every time we eat our meal, remember enough for our nutrition. Consider to save 20%. So there is a movement for economic movement to helping others, 80-20. 80% of your food nutrition, 20% of your love and care for another vulnerable. SDG 1, hunger. SDG 2, reduce the hunger. That's work together. SDG 3 for education. SDG 4 for healthy community. Economic justice, global ethic, that's all working together. And all the religious representatives, every one of you in 2023 Parliament of World Religions, that's be someone's partners, that's be someone's friend, that's be someone's mentors. No matter your sisterhood position, brotherhood position, grandfather, grandmothers, you are scholar, you are academic leaders. Like Master Zeng Yan say, community in action, community working together, compassion from every one of us from your heart. Listen. Thank you.
Thank you for coming to the Community Plenary. We hope you'll come back tonight at 7 p.m. for Sacred Music Night.